It started with the marbles. 3 of them, pale green glass, the size of a thumbnail, turned up in the rear seat footwell of my lift car on a weekday morning in Brooklyn. I was idling on Vanderbilt Avenue just north of Prospect Park, waiting on a passenger. I noticed them while vacuuming between fares, one wedged under the seatbelt anchor, one near the heating vent, and the last oddly balanced on the carpet where the floor curves up under the seat. I didn't think much about them. Kids, I assumed. Plenty of my riders, nannies, mothers, scattered families, had strollers or backpacks, and it wouldn't be unusual for something to roll loose. I dropped them one by one into the open coin tray beside the cup holder and continued the day. By the time I rolled over the Williamsburg Bridge that night heading home, 2 more marbles had appeared. Identical. Same dull glassy shade, unremarkable swirls suspended inside. One was on the front passenger floor, half hidden beneath an unused charging cable. The other rested in the door well, nestled right beneath the window button, like a small watchful eye. I retraced the evening in my mind. The passengers had all been adults. No kids, no bags opening, nothing dropped. I remembered a woman in Bed-Stuy crying while her AirPods leaked some sad neo-soul track, but she left no trace in the car. Some college siblings going to a movie on 86th Street. Nothing out of place. After parking on Tillery Street under the Manhattan Bridge overpass, I sat in the dark, holding the marbles in my hand. When I shook them lightly, they didn't clink. They thudded together softly, like packed sand inside thin glass. The next day, I started noting them in the rideshare app's internal trip notes section. I documented where I picked up, how long the ride lasted, and after each passenger, I would check. A pattern emerged in pieces, but it had rules I couldn't understand. Sometimes a marble appeared mid-ride, felt with my shoe, rolling under the accelerator. At other times, there'd be 2 or 3 after a trip, stacked at implausible angles, balanced on the emergency brake, or inside the indent of the cup holder, despite me not hitting any sharp turns. Once, I found one inside my jacket pocket hanging behind the driver's seat. I hadn't worn that jacket in days. After 6 days, I had 23. I kept them in a cloth pouch, the kind that pharmacies gave out for diabetic pens. They had a strange temperature, always a little cooler than my palm, regardless of the weather, even after baking all afternoon in the sun near Flatbush Avenue. When I opened the pouch at night, they let off a faint clinking sound, as if repositioning themselves. Or maybe it was my wristwatch brushing them. Each night I told myself I'd throw them out or photograph them, get an expert opinion if those existed. But when I woke, I only thought of finishing my shift and getting through the day. My wife noticed the change in me. I slept differently, more often napping in broad daylight, and paced around our studio when I was off duty. "Are you picking up strange people again?" she asked after I came home pale one night, June sweat soaking through the collar of my shirt. I told her I wasn't working late, just getting home slower than usual. It was bad traffic. The city was full of redirection signs that seemed positioned just for me. Unannounced turn restrictions on Flatbush, disappearing lanes near Atlantic Terminal. Dozens of construction crews with their orange tape and hollow echoing drills, but no workers visible. Sometimes the traffic lights reset mid-cycle. I never seemed to drive the exact same route twice, even between neighborhoods I'd known for decades. Late one morning, I ended up parked behind the Brooklyn Public Library's Grand Army Plaza branch, trying to sync my Lyft app logs to a spreadsheet I'd begun keeping. From that vantage, looped around the construction site and across from the statues, I could see the Prospect Park trees pulsing in heat shimmer, the sky overcast in a way that diffused all shadow. A group of school kids walked past, but I noticed one of them peel off and head down the slope toward my car. A boy, maybe 12. I tapped my window reflexively. He wasn't approaching with menace, just this quiet determination. His clothes were tidy, red polo and khaki shorts. When he got close, I realized what unsettled me. His hands were cupped out in front of him like he was holding something, but the hands stayed perfectly still. No fidgeting, no visible tremble, like you'd see from any kid trying to transport something delicate under their own momentum. When he stopped beside the passenger window, his mouth opened. He didn't speak, but it formed a word. 3 syllables, round and silent, like an incantation. Then the stoplight cut across us in red, and a municipal water truck hissed to a halt beside me, blocking my view. When it passed, he was no longer there. That night the car wouldn't lock. I pressed the key fob 3-4 times, heard the latch mechanism click, the mechanical thud inside each door, but the security chirp never came. The interior lights stayed on an extra second. Something in me hollowed when I inserted the actual metal key into the trunk and opened it slowly. I don't know what I expected. Blood, maybe, or another stack of marbles. But it was empty. Except, I noticed on the inside of the trunk lid faintly, where the lining had been rubbed smooth, a cluster of small, round, pressed shapes, not scratched or stained, but subtly flattened into the upholstery like the velvet had been worn down from within. 10, maybe 12 indentations. I stopped driving for 2 days, but the marbles kept appearing. On Tuesday, I took a walk through Greenpoint, trying to clear my head. I left my car locked near Franklin Street, key buried in my sock drawer at home. I walked past the waterfront, watching the ferry roll slowly toward Manhattan. But when I got back that night, 3 marbles sat directly on the kitchen table, one upright, one on its side like it had rolled slightly, and one stacked unnaturally on top of the others. No one else had keys. No one could have come in, and the door was still bolted. My wife stared at me and said only, "You should check your back." I reached over my shoulder automatically and under my collarbone. Near the seam of my shirt, I felt something round and hard, pressed like a cyst beneath the fabric. I pulled the shirt off. Nothing. But just above the skin, in the cotton, 3 small, round impressions, as if something had rested there all day, sinking slightly with my sweat and weight. She didn't look at me again that night. She lay awake and faced the wall, and I heard her murmuring something under her breath into the pillow. I tried filming it. I fixed an old phone to the dashboard with duct tape and set it to record every ride. I backed up the footage every night, timestamps clearly marked. Most rides were uneventful, but then I watched the footage from Thursday's 3:12 p.m. fare, pickup on South Oxford near the Barclays Center. Male, mid-30s, dark hoodie, duffel bag. He entered the car without incident. But on replay, there was a 3-minute gap between the car starting and pulling into traffic. The time jumped from 3:12:08 to 3:15:17. In that interval, frames jittered. The brake lights of the parked car ahead wavered and condensed into a single red haze. The man's hands twitched, then retracted out of view. When the footage resumed, 2 marbles sat on the center console, which hadn't been visible before. The passenger said nothing throughout the ride. Not that I remembered him speaking in person either, but in the footage, just before he exited, he looked directly into the camera that was hidden behind the rear-view mirror. No smile, no words, just acknowledgement. I tried emailing the clip to a friend in IT, but the video wouldn't attach. Every attempt froze the laptop. The system wouldn't recognize the file as a video. The player labeled its length as "what." When I tried importing it into editing software, it flagged for corrupted metadata, except other videos before and after played fine. I gave up and returned to driving, mostly within Brooklyn. I feared if I crossed into Manhattan again, the marbles might multiply. Passengers began commenting on them, softly at first. "You got kids?" murmured a woman near Red Hook, pointing to one marble lodged between the air vent blades. A man laughed that it reminded him of those gumball prizes they used to get in Iowa. One child, maybe 6 years old, asked whisper soft, "Is it watching from the round parts?" I pretended not to hear, but even I had started to sense the sound of them before I saw them. That same glass-on-glass whisper, like hundreds moving faintly just out of reach, like beads rolling down distant stairs. Eventually, I stopped carrying the pouch. I left it beneath the driver's seat sealed shut, yet they still found their way inside my coat or hat or the lining of my glove box. Once I found one balanced atop a cup of coffee I had just bought, unmoved, despite driving 6 blocks. Another time, 2 were inside a closed water bottle, floating weightlessly just beneath the seal. One night, parked in Battery Park near Castle Clinton, I left the car running while I stepped out to clear my head. The Hudson whispered up the seawall and fog blanketed the edge of the walkway. A ferry roared from a distance but never arrived. When I returned to the driver's seat, I found a single marble resting on the leather where my body had been, warm to the touch. I began to lose track of real hours. Clocks on the dashboard and on my phone disagreed regularly. Sometimes my trip histories inserted duplicates, 2 identical drop-offs with timestamps a minute apart. Lyft said their servers showed no error. I started blacking out during red lights, arriving at a location with no memory of the trip taken to get there. Once I found myself idling on Roosevelt Island, a place I'd never bookmarked or routed to. I had passengers still in the car. None of them spoke. They exited silently when I stopped, each leaving their door slightly ajar. No one closed my backseat door the rest of that day. The marbles changed color after that. They got darker. Still green, but more opaque now, like oxidized copper. Their surfaces less smooth, some pitted, others hair-lined with cracks that didn't follow the contour of glass. I started to feel pain in the soles of my feet as I drove, a faint pressure, like standing in gravel. My reflection in storefront windows always lagged a second behind, like an old live stream buffering just out of sync. Things escalated. I began carrying a magnet, a rare earth puck I'd gotten online. I held it near one marble. No effect. I submerged one in a mug of vinegar to check for reaction. Nothing. I cracked one with pliers. It split quietly, revealing the inside dust gray, no visible core. I left another on the ledge of the Brooklyn Bridge for 5 hours in the sun. When I came back, it was gone. But 20 more were tucked into the weather stripping of my car doors. I screamed and hit the steering wheel until blood welled between my knuckles. No one passing along the bridge turned to help. The last straw happened on a Tuesday afternoon. Pickup was from a nondescript brownstone in Ditmas Park. No name, no profile picture. The passenger never showed. I canceled after 5 minutes and began pulling away when a marble fired hard against the inside of the rear windshield, from within. I spun around and saw nothing. But there it was. A perfect round impact point. Spiderweb cracks radiating from it. I removed it carefully, pried it loose from the speaker grill. Warm. Fast heartbeat of warmth. I haven't driven since. I park the car in different spots at night. Quiet areas under overpasses, beneath the FDR near East Harlem, or way out near the Canarsie Pier. No matter where, by morning, there are always more, and always arranged. Once, I opened the car door and found 13 of them forming a perfect ring around the front seat. I asked my wife to leave. She did, without asking why. I think in some part of her, she already knew. Lately, I see flashes of color in the corner of my eyes, even when I stand still. My fabric seems to shed round indentations. Nothing electronic I own functions predictably. My phone dims at odd angles. My thermostat resets to unreadable modes. And my doorbell cam sends footage of an empty porch, spaced perfectly every 6 minutes. The city has begun to echo strange phrases back to me in walls, in car horns, in subway speaker glitches. Syllables forming something circular and old, but hidden behind false names. And at night, when I turn all the lights off and walk barefoot across the apartment, I feel those small, hard shapes roll slowly beneath the pads of my toes. Growing in number. Never seen, but always returning to the dark.